thanks for downloading the show. Welcome to GardenFork Radio. I'm your host, Eric. I have this podcast and a YouTube channel that I call Eclectic DIY. We talk about what I hope are interesting things. Today we're going to be talking about maker spaces, making a Dovetail box, and a new version of No Knead Bread with my friend Catherine from Canada. Hey, Catherine.
Hey, Eric. It's good to be talking to you again.
Yeah, last time you were on, we talked about something else.
Pizza ovens.
Oh, that's right, pizza ovens, because I was like...
And photo books.
Yes. Because we're going to go on a tangent right now, my father-in-law made my wife and I a photo book for our wedding anniversary.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Because we're always texting them or emailing them photos of us and the dogs and whatever we're doing. And my father-in-law is retired and something of a photo nerd. I think he can say that proudly. And he put together this book. He did not use Blurb. He used some other company, but it's great. And then we sent a copy to my mom. She was so happy about it. So that was kind of neat.
Oh, it's so nice. I mean, I just love having the photo books, to quickly show people things. You don't have to search for, photos in your computer and, try to figure out a way to show someone. It's the best thing.
I love it. So a quick technical note. I'm in the middle of moving my office around in Brooklyn, and so I have a computer desk down in the basement, and it's right next to the solar panel inverter. And it makes this incredibly loud whining noise.
Okay.
And so I'm sitting at the kitchen table with a USB headset to do our talk. So.
Oh, very good. Very good. Yeah. So your solar panels, they feed into, do you have like your own battery setup, or do you only use what you can use while it's running, and then the rest of it goes back and feeds back into the system?
Right. It's a grid-tied system. I'm looking forward to being battery powered, but the New York Fire Department is not a fan of nickel metal hydride batteries inside a building because they are prone to catch fire sometimes. So that's the hurdle we're working on now. So.
Okay. Is that a lithium battery? No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. Someone's yelling back at the podcast right now. But anyway,
well, because
the Tesla Powerwall is something in my future, I think.
Well, that'd be very cool. That would be an excellent video.
Yeah. Maybe I can get a free rocket ship ride with my...
Yeah, I've been watching. I'm not really a space geek at all, but, I've been watching some of the SpaceX videos and saw their successful rocket launch and return to Earth this morning, and so that was pretty impressive.
Phenomenal. So you sent me I emailed you and said, hey, would you like to be on the show? What have you been up to? And you sent me a picture of a phenomenally beautiful wooden box with dovetail joints, and I'm like, I could never make that.
Well, you absolutely could make it, and there are quite a few flaws in it, but I decided that when I sent you the picture, I was going to say, oh, here it is, but you'll notice blah 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 is wrong with it, and then I said, frig that, I'm just going to be proud of it because it's pretty impressive.
Yes, it's amazing. I didn't see any flaws. I was like, wow, look what she made. That's like amazing.
Well, what a journey in a sense, right? So woodworking is something that I've always been kind of interested in, just making stuff in general. And woodworking, going back to spending time in my grandfather's little basement workshop and him showing me how to make something when I was really little. And my dad being very handy at, fixing things and, not necessarily, actually making furniture. He was an architect, and so he made some furniture and stuff like that. And then, in retirement years, I've thought, well, I'd like to do more things with my hands. I mean, I spend my whole life on computers, talking to people, meetings, writing, and doing all that sort of stuff. So let's switch it up and do something more concrete. And so I decided I was going to do a online, of course, during the pandemic. How do you do these things? You can't go to workshops and have hands-on lessons. So I signed up for an online class in making a dovetail box, which was kind of probably too ambitious for my first project. But it went pretty well. It's a guy who has actually published a couple of books. His name is Vic Tesselin, and he's in Ontario. I'm in British Columbia. And it was just an amazing experience. But I discovered that although a lot of the stuff is done in hand tools, I needed access to some machines in order to actually break down the wood and be able to do some of the tasks that I needed to do. So I ended up joining a makerspace last fall.
That's cool. I love that. So
I think I might have first heard about makerspaces from you, actually.
It could be. I actually was just on my local makerspaces website signing up for a class that's going to be. Well, we could talk about that after the box making class. But yeah. Mm-hmm. So you found the gentleman online offering his own class. So it wasn't from the local makerspace, and then you signed up for the makerspace to be able to use their tools. Did you have to go through any kind of safety training or anything at the makerspace?
Yeah, that's one of the things I really was impressed by. I had been back at this, I'd visited the makerspace about a year ago, and with my son, just kind of checking it out. And at the time, we signed up for their they call it introduction to woodworking, but it is their safety course. So you have to do it's like a 3 or 4 hour class in the evening where they introduce you to using some of the tools. And you come home with a beautiful cutting board made from different strips, different types of wood, purple wood, purple heart, and
nice
mahogany and walnut and maple. They have it kind of all set up for you. But that's how they do their safety introduction. And the instructor there, who's also one of the co-owners, Adam, he was just amazing, very patient, but very focused on making sure people do not cut off various parts of their body.
They make table saws now that if the blade detects human flesh, it shuts down the blade.
Yeah, the saw stop, and that's what they use there.
It probably makes their insurance lower.
yeah, and it has, they have, but of course it's a little bit of expensive because it basically the machine throws like I'm going to call it titanium. It's not titanium. It's probably aluminum. It throws like a block of metal at the blade in order to stop it. And then you end up with basically a little piece of concrete that you have to take out and reload the cartridge in the blade. So it can be an expensive thing, but it's a lot less expensive than losing a finger or a hand.
Yeah. When emergency room visits start at $300 and go up, so.
Yeah.
Oh, but in Canada, it's not like that.
In Canada, yeah, it's not. But you lose the ability to do something that may be your job, or it's certainly not the sort of thing that happens. So yeah, so I had to do an introduction, and then when I came back, I did a second sort of more advanced when I actually joined up. So at the time I did the introductory course. You don't have to join up, but so when I came back, I did the next course, which was an advanced course, which deals with so the first course I think dealt with the bandsaw and like some of the sanding equipment, and I can't even remember what the other equipment is. But then the second course covered off the table saw, the jointer and the planer. And no, actually, the first class did the joiner and the planer, I guess. But yeah, so it was just a really cool experience, and I was very impressed by the level of instruction and the care and attention that they showed to safety issues. So I was very happy to sign up there and get access to all their equipment. And they're very generous with, I just find like the community is an amazing thing too. The people that you meet there, and the generosity of both the people that work there and the people that just use the space in sharing their knowledge and taking the time to show you how to do things that you didn't know how to do.
I like that. I've taken a welding class and a laser cutter class at our makerspace here, and it's just kind of neat that the different people you meet. One of the people taking the welding class said, I'm a computer programmer and I'm on the computer all the time, and I just wanted to do something that didn't involve the computer.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And like get away from screen time.
Yeah. And welding is like
So,
the polar opposite of that.
oh, I bet. Yeah. And smoke and flame and all that stuff. Welding is
Sparks.
something that I kind of, part of my problem is every time I see something, I want to learn that new thing.
Yep.
But what that means is that then I don't kind of master the things that I've already started learning. So I'm trying to avoid the temptation of, just another class and just another class. And so this, doing the Dovetail box was cool because really you can do most of it with hand tools. And it was an incredible stretch, surprisingly difficult, just things that look simple when you see someone doing them, like, sawing a straight line through wood with a handsaw, was just way more challenging than I thought it was going to be. But, this class, it was done 4 sessions over 4 Sunday mornings. And there were it was a true sort of interactive. There were only 8 students, I think.
Uh-huh.
And they came from, there was one student in England. There were a few students from the United States, I think California, someone in the South. There was another fellow doing it in British Columbia. There was another guy in Montreal. It was very interactive, and we've all stayed in touch, actually, through a WhatsApp group that the instructor set up. And so we're still, sharing information. People are going on and doing other projects and sharing photos of the stuff that they're doing, asking questions about, where do you get this? What's the best tool to do that? So there's been just a continuing benefit from having signed up in this class.
That's great. At the makerspace, this is just did in the classes, do people wear name tags, or are you supposed to memorize everyone's name, or?
No, they don't wear name tags. That would probably be a good idea. And there's a lot of content. So in the actual class, like the classes that I've done so far, there's not a lot of time to interact with the other people in the course. But they have a big board when you come in, with photos of all the members and their names, and then everybody gets like a little badge or a little sticker that shows what courses you've completed. And they have a huge range of stuff. They have they do have a laser cutter. They have 3D printers. They have a vinyl decal or decal, depending on how you say that, machine that you can make your own decals for things.
Oh, that's what I want to do next. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's they have people there teaching people how to make soap. They're setting up a pottery studio. So and they've had a huge increase, I think, during the pandemic. It's been really good for their business, and they have a lot more members. So they're actually adding a second table saw and some other equipment just because they have so much demand for equipment. And there's a number of people in there who run businesses, making tables. There's a woman who I discovered just lives down the street from me, but she makes custom dog crate covers, so the wire dog crates that people leave their dogs in during the day.
Right.
She makes basically tables to cover those things so that you can integrate them into your furniture. And she's doing phenomenally well with that. Like that has just, because I think she was started off doing other things, cutting boards and different stuff, but she made one of these for herself and posted it to her Instagram, and all kinds of people have been ordering them. And so she's in there. She has someone that works with her. Like you can have an associate member.
Wow.
When you have a membership there, so that people who are running businesses can hire assistants to come in and help them do the project. So it's very cool.
Oh wow! I just want to go do stuff now.
Yeah. Well, there's a guy in there now as well who's, using all the equipment and stuff to, he's basically converting a van to a camper, which of course is a very popular thing to do these days. And so he's doing that using his membership and the tools to be able to cut all the stuff and make all the things to do the interior of his van for either camping or living in. I'm not sure what his ultimate plan is, but it's very inspirational. And you go in there, and sometimes I go in there and I just think, I don't even know what I want to do, but I know if I'm in there and I'm surrounded by stuff. You can buy wood there as well.
Yeah.
You see people doing things, and you just want to try different stuff, and it opens up all kinds of possibilities. I learned how to use one of those pocket hole jigs yesterday, because I'm building a little outdoor table for my daughter and her boyfriend for their deck. So using that to put things together is just a cool thing. And then once you figure out these things, you sorts of applications for the skills. So that's pretty cool.
Now, yeah, if you're listening to this and wondering if there's a makerspace in your town, just type in the name of your town and makerspace, and hopefully something will pop up. Or you could start your own, or you could have like a little collective.
Well, a great idea. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, that would be a great idea. I mean, the one that I go to is actually it's about a 20-minute drive from my house, so it'd be amazing if there was one that was even closer. And you could see, just a bunch of people who have their own tools maybe getting together and on a fairly, small scale basis, setting up something. You could start out in someone's garage.
Kind of like some computer companies.
Exactly. Or a shed in your backyard or whatever. Yeah, it's a great way to make making accessible to people who don't have either the money to buy the tools or don't necessarily want to invest, or they don't have the space. And where we are, we're just outside of Vancouver. I mean, there's so many people, there's a lot of spaces. Obviously, the more urban your space is, I think the more popular maker spaces are, because people don't have the room or the freedom from neighbors to do, noisy tool things that create dust and noise and all that sort of stuff.
I was helping a friend of mine. He's selling his parents' retirement house, which is in a 55-plus community. And there are so many rules about what you can do around and in your house. It's like zombie land. It was on a Saturday afternoon and there was no one outside. And my friend said, if you have your garage door open, it can only be open for X number of hours, and you can't play music. You can't do this. There's everything you can't do,
Oh yeah, there's so many restrictions, and as you get older, so many more people are living in those kind of restricted spaces. I mean, we live in a condo, and I really noticed it when we were, kind of isolated. When we came back from Mexico, and you had to be isolated in your condo, and you don't have outdoor space, and you don't have all you have is a patio, and you don't have a yard or a garage, and like you say, even people who have a garage, if you're living in one of these, strata or condo developments, that even like a bare land one, they've got all sorts of community restrictions and covenants on what you can and can't do. So
yikes.
It's definitely a challenge.
So one more plus for the makerspace then. So with actually making those dovetail joints, which are, I just can't, you'll have to look it up, everybody. Did you cut those by hand, or did you use the jigsaw or something, or?
No, I cut those all by hand using like a Japanese pole saw, I think it's called a ryobi. The fellow who taught the course, actually, he's associated with Lee Valley. He used to work for Lee Valley, which is a manufacturer and gardening and all sorts of stuff. Anyway, he has a couple of books out. He calls himself the Minimalist Woodworker. And so I think the first book is called The Minimalist Woodworker, and the second book is The Minimalist Woodworker Projects that just came out now. And the Dovetail box is one of the boxes in there. He's just started a course. So the course we did was over 4 weeks, and you made a box sort of with multiple dovetails in the corners. But he also has a course which is just a one-night one on making the one dovetail box. So it's a small box made to hold paper, like printer paper.
Right.
And there's just one dovetail in each corner. But they're cut. They're marked by hand. The angles, and you use a divider to space them out. And you can buy a sawing jig that from Lee Valley or Lee Nielsen or all these other different places. But I used a jig to mark the dovetails, but I actually then cut them by hand using this pull saw. And then basically you cut the tails first, and then you use the tails to mark the pins, basically. So if you make any errors, your tails don't have to be perfect because you're going to copy those errors onto the other piece of wood when you make your tails. So the two should match up in theory, even if you cut, wonky the first time.
Oh, sweet. I just, I've never been able to do that. My father-in-law has a machine that'll do them for him in his woodworking, but I was just like, I just saw the box and I was like, holy cow. So it looks great.
Yeah, I was like I said, I was pretty happy at that how it turned out at the end, and pretty neat. It's a pretty cool thing to have at the end, But again, I had to remind myself while I was going through it and making mistakes and feeling frustrated and thinking, oh, I should just give up. This is going to look like crap at the end. It's a lot of it is about the process as much as what you end up with at the end.
Yep.
And, it can be, I mean, it sounds kind of, funny, but, a meditative process to be working on woodworking things or projects. But it's also a great thing to keep your mind active, and it was way more challenging mentally than I thought it was going to be.
That's great. It's probably cheaper than therapy too, so.
Absolutely.
Until you buy the table saw.
Yeah, until you buy the tool, and even the hand tools, like I bought a block plane from Lee Valley, which is it's a work of art in itself.
That's a gateway drug, the block plane.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. But again, I just try to do what I can with what I have, and having the makerspace. Even just not, like I talked about doing the pocket holes. I mean, I didn't have to buy a pocket hole jig, because there are times when you start off on these new hobbies, and it seems like you're just hemorrhaging money.
Yeah.
Everywhere you turn. So it's nice. It's nice, to kind of keep it, down to a dull roar in terms of the amount that you spend.
Cool. Hey, a quick aside here. Please shop as local as you can, as much as you can. If you're going to shop online and going to use Amazon, would you consider using our Amazon store as your starting point for all your shopping? If you do, we get a little finder's fee, and that all adds up and help us pay the bills here. It's amazon.com/shop/GardenFork. That's amazon.com/shop/GardenFork. The link will be in the show notes as well. Thank you. So the other interest that you and I have together, which we can touch on here before people are, I'm assuming people are in their cars. Maybe they're not.
They don't have anywhere to go anymore.
Is we both make the No Knead Bread, and Kenji Lopez Alt, whose videos I watch on YouTube, I have his book The Food Lab. He used to be a recipe developer at Cooks Illustrated and Serious Eats. And for the New York Times, he wrote an article and a recipe, and he did a video on YouTube for his own channel about No Knead Bread Revisited. basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then I sent you the article because I was so excited about it.
Yeah, well, and I, I watch his videos pretty regularly, and so he had been talking about, working on developing this recipe. I think it's been for, months, who knows, maybe longer, to try to make it easier and more accessible for people. So I was excited to see the outcome of that, and I'm looking forward to trying some of his variations.
I liked the articles in the New York Times, and we'll link to it. There is a paywall, but I think the Times lets you look at 3 articles or something before they say, "Hey, you need to buy in here." So, and it's the article is it talks about his development, but it also talks about the history of the No Knead Bread and how Jim Leahy kind of put a modern step-by-step method to a bread baking method that's been around since Roman times. And I think he gave a lot of people credit that I think needed credit. And then he talked about how he made it better, which I liked.
Yeah, I really like the history of it because I didn't really think about it when he talked about, this. And I think Jim Leahy was one who said, look, this is basically how the Romans made their bread, probably.
Yes.
And before we made it more complicated than it needed to be.
Yes.
And as a result, made the product, something that wasn't as good as it was before we made it complicated. So that was kind of cool.
Yes, I've had homemade bread given to me, and it's a brick,
Absolutely, yeah.
And you're like, oh, great, thanks.
Yeah, the No Knead Bread consistently, whenever I make it and people have it, like if I have people over for dinner and I have a loaf of that bread, the entire loaf will disappear during dinner.
Oh yeah. To hell with the no carbohydrate diet, it's gone.
But it's just so good, and people are so impressed that you can and that you can do that and do it fairly easily and don't have to spend hours actively engaged in the process, right? Most of the hours are passive while you let the bread sit and let the dough develop, which is very cool. I think it's neat that that Kenji's come up with a technique that you don't need to use, a heavy cast iron Dutch oven.
Yes.
Just using these stainless steel bowls, which a lot of people would have already, I think is significant. Are you going to try that adaptation?
Yeah, I'm gonna. I actually have a big bowl and kind of a medium bowl, so I think that'll work well. And I have seen people baking bread in their oven, and they have maybe it's a pizza stone or something, and they throw a stainless steel like salad mixing bowl over the top of it to make that little steamy area. And then it was just kind of interesting how when I saw Kenji do it, he simplified it even more by just taking 2 bowls, so you don't even need a pizza stone or anything. So it was kind of a aha moment. I'm like, oh, let's make some bread,
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, one of the I happen to have Dutch ovens now, so I don't know. He talks about getting burnt on the Dutch oven, and I have. It has happened before.
Yeah.
So I guess that's one of the main advantages of not using that. But there's no real preheating of anything here. So I wonder. Obviously, he found that was not a huge loss.
Right, you don't have to wamp up the Dutch oven. I mean, the Dutch oven's it's a large mass of iron, as opposed to the stainless steel bowls, which are fairly thin, so they don't take very long to heat up.
That's true.
That was my
Yeah.
take. The other cool thing is I never understood why it was a no-knead bread, because you have to physically work the bread to create the gluten, which creates the structure of the bread. And what he wrote in the article here was 2 things. First, using what's called autolyse, which is a process invented by a gentleman in Paris, Raymond Calvel, in 1974. where he would let his dough rest for 20 minutes and found before kneading it, he add the water in and then just let it sit for 20 minutes before kneading it, and that was a light bulb moment, as it would just improve the dough so much so you didn't have to knead it for nearly as long. And then what makes the no knead bread no knead was when you let it sit overnight like that, the yeast creates carbon dioxide and those bubbles move up through the flour and water, and those bubbles are essentially kneading the bread dough.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, because to be honest, a lot of the science just like flies right over my head.
Yeah.
I'd love to understand it and retain it, but it just doesn't stick with me. So a lot of the science stuff, unfortunately. But the results speak for themselves. It's just a neat concept. I've also used. I was baking my way through part of Ken Forkish's book, Flour, Water, Salt, Yeast, I think is it called, something like that. And he knows, again, a lot about the science and why different things work and don't work. And the advantage of knowing the science is it allows you to do, I guess, what Kenji has done, which is decide where you can change the process and what the effect of that will be. If you don't understand what's happening, it's hard to adapt the recipe.
Yeah, I think it's really key to watch. The video is a little chock-a-block on YouTube. I love how he doesn't clean his kitchen and he just straps a GoPro on his head, But the process, it's better to read the article for the process, but to see him, he just does a few short turns of the ball of dough in the bowl before he puts it in the oven. And he wets his hands, which is another thing. Instead of flouring your hands, he learned to wet them. And he just turns it into a ball right quick, which, yes, is kneading in a sense, but just to see that in video instead of some photos or a text description was very helpful for me.
Yeah. I learned a lot through the Ken Forkish book around like different techniques. I have to say the first few times I did the no knead bread, and again, I think it was inspired by you baking it in your kitchen at your summer place, I think, which I miss. I miss the videos in your summer place.
I'm working on it.
And the oven, do you still have the oven that came out of the RV?
Yes. Yeah.
I just love that. And you lighting it, yourself and I just love how you just work with what you have and produce some great stuff. But the no knead bread, it can be intimidating. I found it intimidating at the beginning because the dough is so hydrated and sticky that it can be, you're thinking, oh, I must have screwed this up somehow. Like it shouldn't be like this. And here's the reality. There's a lot of variables that in your own setting, the temperature, the humidity in your kitchen, the temperature in your kitchen, the, even I suppose the altitude that you're at, and then the effect, what your dough's like, what kind of bread you're using or flour you're using, if it's like a bread flour or just a regular all-purpose flour. All these things, I think, can make a dramatic difference to what your dough is like at the end. And then, so you're looking at yours and you're thinking, man, this doesn't look anything like in the pictures or whatever. And you're thinking, this is not going to, and I've had a number of flops. They were still pretty delicious flops, but
yeah,
it's just, I would say to people, it's worthwhile trying it, because when you produce that dough and you listen to the crust crackling at the end when you take it out of the oven, and then you cut, and it's just amazing. And looking at the crumb when you open it up, and it just tastes so delicious. It's so worthwhile.
Sweet. Maybe we've motivated people to bake bread and go to their makerspace here, I hope.
Yeah, hopefully.
So Brain not working. Sorry. Anyway, I think everyone has probably got to their destination. I hope some people are commuting. I imagine. Lynn and I are both double vaccinated now, so we're not freaking out when we go to the grocery store. But if you guys have had some experience with this, I would love to hear from you. It's radio@gardenfork.tv. That's radio@gardenfork.tv. And we'll put in the show notes the people that Catherine has talked about, the gentleman with the online woodworking classes and the cookbooks. And I'll link to the article here and the YouTube video. Catherine and I are going to stick around here. We're going to do a little behind-the-scenes talk for our patrons. But thanks, Catherine, and we'll see you all later. Make a great day. GardenFork Radio is produced by GardenFork Media, LLC in Brooklyn, New York. Our producer is Sean O'Neill. If you need an amazing podcast producer, visit Sean's site, SeanInBrooklyn.com. That's Sean, SEAN, in Brooklyn.com. Our executive producer is Jimmy Goose. For more information about Jimmy and the custom hollow books he makes, visit hollowbooks.com. The music in the show is licensed from audioblocks.com and uniquetracks.com.